Regular council meeting of the village of Armada will now come to order. Will everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance to the flag, please? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Clark.
Here.
Conan.
Here.
Wolof.
Here.
Ballard.
Here.
Sleds.
Here.
Pelkey.
Here.
Approval of agenda, what's the council wishes, please?
We need to add onto the agenda, what should we call that, Jeff? Just
Stump removal.
stuff removal.
Proposal, I guess.
Yeah. And does council want to add that as A, or do you want to add it as C? And
Let's add it as A.
then we'll move
Okay.
everything down.
Yes.
Good. Mr. President, that being said, I'd like to approve the agenda as amended.
Support. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. At this time, the floor is open up for citizen comments. State your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to address the board.
Mark, should I talk about single hauler at this point?
Yes, you can. It's your comment, yes.
Well, it's been talked around the township and the village for many years about a single hauler trash pickup. And this year, it seems to be getting talked about more on Facebook and such. And there certainly was a lot of advantages to it, you know. We're gonna get a cheaper price if we have a contract for the village, a single hauler. Less wear and tear on the roads, and better aesthetics. We'd have trash picked up on one day. Currently, for a person who is subscribing to priority waste, it's $75 a quarter, and that doesn't include recycling or yard waste. And Waste Management, I had called them and talked to them, and their price that they gave me was $101 a quarter and a $75 setup fee, non-refundable for the cart and that. So we're talking close to $500 there, but I've talked to some residents that's got Waste Management, and they said they're getting it for about $220. I called a few villages around here about a month ago. North Branch, they're using priority waste. They got a three-year contract that's expiring this year. They pay $138 yearly for their trash, includes recycling and yard waste, and they bill it quarterly on the with the water bill, so it's $34.50 a quarter. Elmont, they uses M-Terra, 3-year contract, out for bids again, $163.78 yearly, so it's $40.95 quarterly, and they put it on as a fee on the summer taxes. Emily City, they're using J&J, and they're paying $145 yearly. They bill quarterly at $36.45, and theirs is expiring this year too. It's out for bids. Those will all probably go up a little bit. New Haven uses GSL. They pay $191.76 yearly, $47.94 quarterly, and they bill it monthly, and that's probably why theirs is a little bit higher because of administration fees. Richmond City uses Waste Management. It's $219.32 yearly, $54.83 quarterly, and they bill it on the summer tax bill. So basically, I'm looking as a cost-saving thing for the citizens. No one that's contracting individually is getting these rates, and it looks like pretty well anyone's going to save $100 if we did it as a single hauler contract. Now, I asked these villages if any of them had opt-out. None of them had opt-out, but I could understand a resident having opt-out if they also had a business and they could show a receipt. where they have a business and they're utilizing that. Or if they do adopt a single hauler, in the first year, I could see an opt-out for everyone because they have contracts, private contracts that are expiring. And anyway, that's my opinion on it. Mike Shaw had come to the township board meeting, and he was going to bring some information, but he's not here tonight to do that. So he asked if I would come and give us a rundown on what I found out.
Very good, thank you, David. You did talk to me before on the phone about this, and like I said, the township has a trustee that is supposed to be contacting us, I believe, and so the thing is that we are willing to talk about it, you know, like I told you too. So
Yeah.
if it's a benefit to all our residents in our village, we are. So there'll be more meetings apparently on it. We will welcome it. Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Hi, I'm here representing Replant Armada.
Your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Cassandra Christian.
Who are you representing that? Sorry.
Okay, my name is Cassandra Christian, and I'm here representing Replant Armada. We would like to hold a one-time event in late September at the Memorial Park to pass out donated trees and coupons to the local community in the village and the township of Armada that was affected by the tornado in July. If permitted, we would also like to have music and food to celebrate the resilience of our town and to help replace, like I heard that there's 500 trees or so that are damaged or missing after the storm. So it would be just a one-time community event to be able to do that. But we would also like to work with the village as far as that.
Have you talked to
Possible.
Mr. Split at all?
We've reached out, we haven't been able to communicate yet.
Yeah. So he hasn't had a chance to be back with the full council.
If you're
Right.
gonna hold an event in the park, there's a park rental
Yes.
agreement, you know, it's $100, and then I think you get all the 35 back.
Yeah, we
So-
plan on setting that up tomorrow. We have a meeting tonight, we're gonna try to set that up tomorrow. So mostly the donations would go to residents that live within the village or township. But we would also, it would be great if we could actually plant at least one tree in the park kind of ceremonially. So we'd like to work with the village as far as that. So we need to get in contact with the person that does that and to see if there's a willingness to do that. If not, that's okay. We can still just work on getting trees to residents, or at least coupons to save some money if they're not ready to plant this year, maybe in the spring where they'd be able to utilize them then. There's a lot of people that were really relieved that no one was injured and that the damage to most of the homes was manageable, but I've heard comment after comment about how sad people are about the trees and just the devastation of that and how long it's going to take to rebuild. But the sooner we can plant them, the sooner we can have them growing and big again. So I think that's one of the great things about our town is all the established trees, and it was really sad to see that go.
What size are these trees?
It depends on what we can get donated. Some of them will probably be very small. Some of
seedlings?
them will probably be a little bit bigger. We're going to just reach out to anybody and everybody that would be willing to donate. We're also looking for coupons and just financial donations that we could create a fund with for, again, people who might not be ready right now to plant, but we'd be able to tap into that at a later point, like in the spring when people really have their plans set. So it'd be a one-time event to do that, but we want to kind of continue it on at least into next spring as far as donations and getting that to people. But right now is when people are seeing the pictures of the devastation, like I want to help, and so I feel like this is a good time to give people something to do.
So this is
Help.
for residents, right? You're not specifically talking about the right of way, you're talking about residents, correct?
Right,
Yes.
people who live in the village and township, although we might get donations from outside of the area, people who love the town of Armada or have loved ones or from Armada originally.
Right.
There's a lot of people that love this town and would be more than happy to come out and help. So that's kind of the plan thus far, so.
When you come in tomorrow, I'll be in the office. Talk to me
Okay.
about something I can help you with.
Awesome, yes.
Okay.
I'm like, once we get the date, then I can start organizing and getting people fitted in to the
Okay.
different areas. Yes.
Just
before we get too far down the road here, I was going to bring this up in my commissioner reports, but DTE has reached out and contacted me about their desire to donate 40 to 50 trees to the township and the village. So John, I reached out today to Mary, and she gave me Gary's name, the park commissioner, because I would assume these would go into public spaces, the trees would. So I think Chris, you and probably Mike Shell are right away in the park. Sounds like you're talking about potentially residential.
For residents, but if we could coordinate that around the same time, if that's possible,
I'd say
that would be perfect. If we
Yeah.
could set it all up on that same day,
Yeah.
that would be great. And to have all the guys back, maybe that worked on the trees and were so helpful to our town.
And what I would propose to do is I will contact the guy that's talking to me from DTE. I'm going to pass him, John, if you're good with Gary, I'll pass him Gary's name. Chris, Mike, and I'll have to get your name and
Yes.
number. I'll put you in there too, and there'll probably be a meeting set up at some point to discuss path forward on that.
That would be wonderful.
Mr. Shaw is our park commissioner, and he is out on vacation now, but he'll be back next week.
Okay.
So he's another person you can talk with.
If
Yeah.
I may, shortly, Lakes Orchards is also offered to donate trees to the replanting process. So once you get to that point,
Yes.
they're willing to.
Once we have our date set, I know that there's people willing to donate trees.
Yeah,
If we
this
could
is
coordinate
whether you put them
it.
on private property or in the park or whatever. So
Exactly. If we can-
they've extended that branch.
He's going into other
Yes,
people's departments.
great.
So, yeah, just leave your name with Joe, and then I'll get it after the meeting, and I'll
Yeah, I'd love to make it a community
frankly, I'd be
event.
happy to hand it off to you guys, and but I keep getting calls from DTE. On a tangent, you mentioned donations for families and that type of thing. There has been a fund set up through Fort County Community Foundation
Okay.
to receive monies for disaster relief. You really need a 501c3 nonprofit organization to collect the monies, and so they've agreed to do it. Now, how it's going to get dispersed, I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out. They've got a few donations already. They don't disperse in this case. They would give
We
it
won't
to,
disperse either, so.
well, it doesn't have to be us. You would pull some community leaders, perhaps a Lions Club, somebody that would look at the applications and make a decision.
Yeah, I talked to them today, Ross.
Fort County?
I told them that, they need to come forward to explain to residents how, if there was an application process, and their answer was that, that they're
They're just
gonna
collecting
grant
the
any
money.
nonprofit, municipality, other agency providing services to impact residents. The village unfortunately can't take that money to give back like that,
Right.
but an organization can.
So we would be able to apply for it to put towards this.
I'm expecting them at our next meeting because I
Okay.
was affected, so like I don't
Right.
even know how any of this works, so.
I think the point is you want to put any monies that come into a tax exempt organization, so you've got a record of the receipts and all of that, and then how it gets dispersed. We're not going to talk about it at the meeting here, but it's going to, Fort County will not disperse it. The village will not disperse it. It's going to have to go, the monies are going to have to go to a group of people that will make those decisions. It won't be us. I'm just saying if you're collecting as well, you may want to simply steer it to Fort County.
Okay.
Having a bigger bucket and getting the word out about that allows people then to apply to whoever's going to disperse.
Well, we're
it.
not sure that Fort County's only collecting for trees.
No, they're
So we
collecting
don't want to
for-
limit that to only trees.
Yeah. I said Fort County is collecting for disaster relief.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
potential for disaster relief.
Whatever, probably house damages, trees, whatever else.
But our group could apply for that.
Possibly.
I think you could, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Or like
I don't-
whatever's left over after you fix all houses kind of thing.
Well, and I was just, I don't know what they're gonna do. I just reached out to her because, it's all over Facebook, and if people call and ask us, we don't know.
Right.
I mean, I don't have an answer for them, so I invited them to come to a meeting to explain the process.
Right.
So I expect them to be at the next meeting. You know, it might be a good time for you to connect.
Kathy
Alright,
Dinkins
and I'll
is
be nice
the not the chair, what am I, the director of Floral County, and she might be a good person to talk to. They're online, so you can find the phone number fairly easily.
Do you have anything else, ma'am?
That was-
Do you have anything else?
I believe that's it, thank you.
Good, thank you.
for your time.
Mr. Miller, please.
Mrs. Christian,
Yes,
I believe that there is a list of what they call desirable trees that the planning commission of the village has in their
Okay.
ordinance, I believe.
I have that.
Oh, have you? Want to see
Because I did the
Joe's?
last
Because we use it, yeah, because we got, in the tree budget, it's,
Yeah.
And I did the
and
last
plus who we
AT
can buy from.
tree grant
that
that
would
we
be
had.
great.
Oh, that's right, you did, okay.
But I believe that's only for right of way. Like, you know, I think you can plant whatever you want in your yard.
In, on
Right.
private property, no,
Yeah.
not always.
Really?
Like willow trees, you can't plant, you can't plant
Glad
willow
you told
trees
me
in town.
that.
See,
Yeah.
that's great information for
Yeah.
us, because then when we're asking for
Right.
donations, we
Know
can
what
be
to do.
specific about,
Yeah,
our
intrusive trees
village
and like willow, they don't,
Yeah, Black walnut, they don't want you on.
Yeah.
I don't, they're pretty
no,
squirrely.
please no more.
Okay, thanks. We'll move on. Anyone else like to address the board?
I just have one thing.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I don't know if it's on the agenda. My name's Carrie Circoni. I'm a village resident representing, I know, probably 6 to 12 different households that were affected by the tornado. And like our fence in our yard got completely ripped apart, shredded. It was 6 houses down. It was a 6-foot privacy fence. The individual that we purchased the house from 3 years ago, she actually got special permission and got her fence grandfathered in. It was actually the reason that we bought the home, was because of the fence. And I'm not sure how it's gonna work as far as putting up a new fence. I was told that we can't have a fence that's over 3 feet tall if it's facing the street.
You must be living down here.
Yeah, I brought the
What's
prospect.
your address?
Prospect,
Yeah.
I'm right by the park.
By the park, yeah.
Yeah.
There's some details about that that you don't
Should
know.
put that one in
So-
Okay.
backwards.
I didn't know
should
if that was
probably
discussed
talk to
tonight or,
planning.
okay,
I would say step one for you would be talking to planning.
okay.
Okay.
If there's any questions about codes or that for the village, please call the office and the clerks and also Joey here can fill you folks in on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you give me your address just so I can have it for record?
Sure, it's 74415 Burke.
I could look it up, but it's just easier to give it to me.
You'll probably have to follow the ordinance, so, but at times, they will grant a variance.
Yeah, because we'll have to do.
You'd have to go through the variance process.
Yeah.
What I'm guessing.
Okay. Tonight, there's no presentations. We're gonna go next to the administrative reports. Commissioner liaison report. July, code enforcement.
All right, I'm gonna give you one thing. Following up on the bid for the purchase of the replacement to the Massey. I put in for the Massey, I did about the $9,000, so we talked about getting something more in the ballpark of what we've been getting for resale, which is coming up here later. So I did go back to North Center. A Skag Liberty Z.
Skag Liberty
Yep.
Z.
$4,300 plus tax.
Yeah.
Followed by I cut the ball equipment. What's that? No, I understand because some of the other one, the prices they already included tax. So I kept them apples to apples just so I wouldn't have the differences. But I got it. Yeah. Ball equipment had a Gravely ZTXL 4819. A Cub Cadet Ultima ZT2 at $44.99, and then Weingart's has an X-Mark at $42.99 as well. So my proposal would have been is to go with North Center's local, and that cost on the Skag again too. Dave, that was actually the first one we looked at.
How much was that skate, Chris?
4,300.
So you're so old, but brand new, otherwise brand new?
Yep, it is brand new.
Well, you might want to say that.
It's been in the bar.
Well, you don't like it.
I like it.
But if you know about it, you just go do it. You don't have to give.
No, absolutely, but again, that was a
Yeah.
whole-
I'm
Just to
gonna,
make
I'm
sure.
gonna need that information.
No, actually, that's, I was bringing it to head, because- and then I just wanted to make sure, I did get 3, just
Yeah.
assuming they still
I
apply.
was just whispering to Michelle, I mean, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I think that's the thing.
It's under 10.
It is under 10, correct.
So you're just reporting.
I'm just reporting, but I also, again, like with the other, because we were using the sale of one for the other, and that was under the
Pretty much balance
pretense
each other
that,
out.
exactly, that they weren't balancing each other out, so I wanted to let it, hey, we've got a new, a plan that I think works very well, and it
Yep.
keeps it local as well.
So is you intend to make the motion tonight?
No, he doesn't.
No, I don't
he's
have
just-
to.
he-
You're gonna
he was
bring it
just-
back.
No, we don't.
No, he doesn't need to because it's under 10.
Right, what's gonna kick me off though is,
Item C.
3C below at the, is what's gonna actually trigger that, the follow-up on that.
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you all knew or not, that the planning commission did not meet this past Monday for a change. It's been quite a while since we didn't have any new businesses this time. But the tornado did cause some problems. We had approved 4 new businesses to go into Julie's building that came down on West Main. So that was just an extremely sad situation there.
That's right, they just went in, didn't they?
Yep, we just
Yep.
approved 4 businesses.
That's it then, Mr. Rowan?
Pardon?
Your complaint on it?
Yep.
Thank you. And their treasurer's report is also included, which I signed the papers also for the treasurer and the clerk has copies. We'll go to general business. The consent agenda, approval of the regular council meeting minutes of July 26th and the payment of bills. What is the council's wish?
I'll move the consent agenda to be accepted as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Ballard and Clark. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
And I abstain.
Only for the minutes?
Or you
Yes.
wasn't at the meeting? Sewer plant update, water department update, and old business. First is sewer plant, Mr. Clark, please.
Yes, SBR number 2 has been, the walls have been patched, it has been relimed. They are starting to assemble the mixing pumps. Matt and the crew are getting ready for the fair. This is going to be Matt's first fair, since it didn't happen last year. So he knows where the sampling manhole is and getting all set for that. And hopefully all goes well. That's all I've got right now.
Steve,
Yeah.
could you just tell the people how you ran with no electricity for that
Oh,
that 24-hour period?
well, down at the sewer plant, part of the update, we've always had a generator down there, but the generator was very questionable. The plant could not be run full bore. They had to pick and choose what was operating and what was not. And with the update, we have a brand new generator that can run the new plant no problem, and it was run during that time. So all is well with that. It's worked out great. And with the new alarm system, he can look on his phone and see what is the problem, if it's something that's got to have immediate attention or if something that can wait. But that's been a great improvement too, because before the alarm would go off, he had no idea what the problem was at all. Now he can bring it up on his smartphone and exactly see what's, yeah, let there be light, see what's going on, and he can see, check the flow. If we have a bad rain, he can see how things are going, so all that has been great for the update down there. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Clark. The water department, Mr. Belkin, please, do you have any report?
Yeah, at the last meeting, we talked a little bit about the American Rescue Plan Act, paperwork that we were frantically trying to get submitted to the State Department of Treasury. This is rescue funds appropriated by Congress and given to the states. The village gets $179,000 and change, probably in 2 disbursements, but well, I'll take it. In any case, we had some challenges because we had no power, and so how do you get up on the internet to send something to the state? In any case, we were able to get all the paperwork together, and I got that submitted to Department of Treasury on Tuesday by the deadline, and we got a receipt notification back that our application had been received. So that's good news. So again, those funds are for water projects, sewer projects, or broadband projects. And so Steve and I will probably arm wrestle over some of that money when it comes in. I don't know when the first increment's going to be dispersed yet. Haven't really received anything on that, but the good news is we're in. Second item is, council had approved me to go out and buy G2 media for 2 of our 4 filtration vessels at the water treatment plant. We've been, since that approval, we've been watching the arsenic levels at the facility. They remain high, but they're still below the EPA mandated limit. So I don't think we have anything to worry about in the immediate future, but in the interim, we've been looking at potentially finding ways to get additional funds so we could do all 4 vessels at one time. Probably a far more efficient way to go if we could get the funds, and if we were able to buy 4 vessels worth, could we get a price break? After some investigation, it does not appear that the company that produces the media will give us a price break. It costs what it costs. So if we're able to find some additional funds, potential to be able to put a deposit and hold pricing so that when we buy the other 2 vessels 2 years, 3 years down the road, the prices don't go up. So we're looking at that now. But I'm not very hopeful that we're going to get any break. So once we get the my final questions answered on pricing, I'll come back to council, let you know what we're able to do in terms of funding options, and if we have no other funding options rather than the quotes that were on the table, I think it's prudent to just move forward and do the 2 vessels then, as we had kind of planned. Again, looking for some options. I don't know that we're going to find many at this point, but I remain hopeful. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll nail down what we're going to be able to do, and then go forward and get the arsenic arsenic media and treatment media in 2 of the vessels. I want to be clear to the camera. In 2 of the vessels of our 4 exchanged, and that'll bring our levels down again into far more acceptable range than we have now. Again, that is not in the drinking water. Make sure that people understand that, because that gets a lot of people panicked. Well, yeah. Let me explain just for a second. The filtration vessels take the arsenic out of the groundwater that we draw from aquifers under the village. We have high arsenic and iron content in our water, in our groundwater. And the filtration vessels at the water treatment plant filters it out and does a darn good job of it. The nice thing about it is that the media has lasted in those vessels twice as long as it was expected to last, but it's getting old now, and it's getting to the point that we need to change it, and it's not inexpensive. So again, we watch the levels every day. We report on the levels to the state, so the state's aware. Nobody needs to worry about it, but we want to make sure that we get the media exchange to keep the levels low, as they have been for years.
I can't Eagle direct you to go any place for help. I mean, they already got a sewer plant going. Yeah. They know what they've asked us to do, and they know it's immense. Yeah. They can't direct you to any agency for help?
They've given some suggestions, but we've already tried a couple grants. You know, frankly, we thought we were going to get some of the grants. We didn't get awarded any money out of the grants, and there may be another one coming, but given the arsenic saturation levels at the plant, I don't want to wait a whole lot longer. I think it's prudent to go ahead and do 2 and just be on the safe side. So, so we continue to look for funding, but right now there's nothing that Eagle's been able to put on the table for us. Our debt limit's a little bit too high right now to be able to borrow, I think, for the other 2 vessels, and so we'll just do the 2. You know, 2 years ago, that was our plan, was to do 2 out of the 4. We're kind of back to where we were 2 years ago to do 2 out of the 4. So we were hoping to do them all. That would be the best way to go, because it's just efficient, keeps costs low. But doesn't look like we're going to find a way to do it. So. The good news is Eagle does not need a permit, so we got past that.
They don't need a what?
Permit on
You
this,
weren't here at the
which,
last meeting.
and the concern was that
We didn't talk
the
about
permitting
that.
process would have lengthened the amount of time that we had to wait before we did the exchange process. We don't want to wait a whole lot longer. We want to get this done. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll go to the new business, and this is, now we're going to take the stump removal, which is within the village limits. I did have contact with Mr. Patrick. I was at the meeting. Also, we had Mr. Clark, our clerk. Michelle was there, and also our trustee Shaw was there. And the township has motioned to the fact to allow that they pay for the stump removal process. And so the thing is that their bids came in. One was 41,000, one was 27,000, and the other was 12,600 approximately, which would mount up that the township figured would be 12,600 in other words. And the fact that the bid was $140 per machine and per truck. So figured on 2 vehicles like that, it'd be $280. So with the amount of time involved, figuring 4 to 5 hours, in other words, per stump, township awarded the 12,600. Pardon me. To the Dean Reinhardt bidding, and I did tell Mr. Patrick that the village should be awarding the contract for bids and that. So the thing is that apparently the attorney of the township said that they should be because they'll be paying the
It's township dollars, right?
yeah. So that was
I did.
So
If I may, please.
yes,
The 18 stumps we're replacing or removing were brought to our attention at the emergency management meetings by Chief Patrick
Yep.
for safety hazards.
Yep.
We have your village residents, the township residents, and people from abroad coming in. So our intent was to help with the emergency repairs for the safety of the public as a whole.
Right.
But the township can't expend money on anything unless I can justify that it benefits the community as a whole. And that was easy to do when Chief Patrick brought it to our attention.
Yep.
So that was the reason for
Yep,
that.
yep.
I was going to ask how many, but you said 18, and that's what I
18
understood.
stumps, yes.
Is Dean able to coordinate with the DPW, just because I understand we've got
Well,
various water, sewer.
Yeah, once you guys approve Dean to do the
Mhm.
work, he's working with and for the DPW.
Yeah.
We have nothing to do with that, that's all with
right.
the
Okay.
DPW.
And he should be starting
You gonna make a
tomorrow.
motion?
Correct, our question.
Oh, it's tomorrow?
Go ahead, make
Okay.
it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Should be there starting tomorrow when we award this tonight.
Yeah.
We intend to do it.
Yeah.
And he's hoping to, now, because the fair starts in short order and he's involved in the fair, He's hoping to address the immediate concerns first. There are some stumps and sidewalks that are in precarious places that will have more traffic, i.e. the one on the end of Prospect by Fair Street. People will be coming from the elementary schools.
Well, those are the things he'll be, working with Dave for.
Right, and I made a map of the village, and we put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for suggestion, and they can do what they want with it, but to try to work from the fairgrounds out into the public area where they're parking.
Yep. Yep. Sounds good.
Wait,
Fine.
Got a motion.
Chris, you have something,
I'll make the motion.
Okay. I'm
Got
ready.
it?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. President, move to grant Dean Reinhardt access to the Village of Armada right-of-ways for the purpose of brush and tree stump removal pursuant to the proposal dated August 3rd, 2021, and accepted by the Township of Armada on August 5th, 2021. This access is limited to the scope of work being performed on behalf of Township of Armada pursuant to the accepted proposal.
Second.
by Conan. Any further discussion?
It's pretty much the stumps, right, John? Not brush?
No, it's not, but what actually, Dean and Dave already talked.
Direct it to the council, will you, Mr. Balke? For the last time I'm asking you, directed it.
Did you
I
want
raised
to
no-
make a-
What are we removing?
The
What are we
reason,
removing here?
the reason the word brush was included because it's in the proposal. So it's not the end of the world there. I just took what he said he was going to do.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's not a problem. We just had the DPW working brush. And it wouldn't make sense to pay for brush if the DPW is doing that. And we've had Richmond and Romeo out here helping out with brush as well.
But we're not directing this, we're just, like any other contract that wants to work in our area, we're allowing Dean to go in. I'm assuming Mr. Patrick's covered what they want done for their money.
And that let him work that out with Dave Wagner.
Dave
Actually,
Wagner.
the scope of work, he's even gonna take some of the flag broken some concrete out while he's working on the stump to help Dave because of the.
No.
And I just want to follow up.
Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody on council is aware. This proposal, and John, if you, I'm sure if you want to jump in and correct me, but the proposal is just brush it, stump, or just stump, whatever he ultimately is done. This does not include sidewalk repair, and it does not include backfilling and seeding. So
Correct.
want to make sure you guys understand that. It's not just
removal.
That's right.
Correct.
So
We're taking the huge
well,
road balls.
the only
that
reason
are
I bring it
out
up, some of the proposals did cover restoration. None of them wanted to touch the sidewalk, which I understand that's not their job. But I just wanted me to make sure, I drove before the meeting, I drove through, there's some pretty significant impressions already. When you take that stump out, it's gonna be even deeper, so
Right.
it's not something that we have to be prepared for. And sidewalk, as we know, we're trying to get a sidewalk contractor to do normal sidewalk repairs, so we've got some work to do, that's all I'm really making sure we
On
understand.
top of that, Jeff, with Dave, as we quote, when they come out, there's going to be some amount of fill and then barricading of those until we can get to the actual restoration.
This is a good first stop, really, kind of
Definitely.
level the playing field and give us a chance to start it.
And there is also some fill from the fairgrounds that they dug out in the arena that was too hard, probably a lot of rocks and everything. So our village employees will be able to take some of that and also use that.
Yep.
And so I also talked to Mr. Patrick about the stumps. They're gonna be placed out at the transfer site and also on the fairgrounds property on Centerville.
Yep.
Actually, we're not gonna place them they're all over the transfer site.
Everything's
Okay.
transferred.
Oh, that was changed then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's
That's
Yeah,
about
thank you, yeah. It's already there, and I must have 60 of them out there now.
Yeah.
So anybody can take their stumps out there.
We've opened the transfer site up to the village and township residents to remove their stumps and take them to that location. And we're gonna have Dean, when he takes the big stumps out there with his excavator, pile it all up, and hopefully in 2 years we can have a community weenie roast in the middle of the winter from Armada Ridge.
That's good for people to know.
I think that was on Facebook too.
Yeah, I put it on Facebook and let folks know, because we had some people with 40 stumps in the area, they just didn't know what to do with them.
You know,
And Captain couldn't write any of them.
Right.
Any further comments from the?
No, but by the way, point on brush too, one of the things is, right, remember with our equipment, we actually damaged some knives. These are, the chippers and shredders are, a typical brush, if it's live, it is not for it. They've actually, gummed up and broke some blades. So again, when you're looking at brand, 2 inches diameter, it's perfect for it, but when you got your leaves and all those, the twig stuff, it's terrible for it. So that's also been part of where it becomes being collected, moved off to a site, and then can be, burned at a later date, so.
Yeah, good. Thank you. No further discussion? Okay,
You want a roll call?
Roll call?
Yeah.
Sleds,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes?
Belkey,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Wallach.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you to the township board.
It's the right thing to do for our community.
Yep.
Yeah, we're glad to help.
Well,
We're glad they're able to.
and then like I described to the township board the other night, this is a real good showing that the two boards have worked together. And the thing is, there's been some differences in the past in which we hope to now continue a good working relationship.
We're leaders.
Thank you for that, Mark.
Thanks again. We will move now to the public hearing. We have scheduled for 7 o'clock, in which we still will consider it at 7 o'clock. We hold these meetings after we start the meeting anyhow. So we have a motion to enter into public hearing.
Mr. President, I move we enter into public hearing at 7:46.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? If not, roll call.
46.
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes?
Belkey,
Yes.
Wallach,
Yes.
Sleds,
Yes.
Cronin.
Yes.
Motion carried. The public hearing is now open, and this is amending the village zoning ordinance to authorize the village council to consider granting of a use variance and create a traditional overlay to the district. So, floor is open.
Yes. Well, so as everybody knows, earlier this year, the Planning Commission was dealing with a property commonly known as 74-130 Fulton Street. And that was a special approval land use to do light industrial use in what is zoned as a C2 or general business district. That was ultimately, that SLU application was denied. But as many of you know on the board, the owner of the property did appeal to the council for some relief on that decision. So it caused us to take a fresh look at these C2 properties. And if you guys could take a quick look, it's I included it in my thing, but there's a map that kind of shows the C2 properties south of Main Street. Actually, there's one north, there's two north also, but there's a little map that can kind of give you a geographic representation of the properties that are could be affected by the text amendments that you're considering tonight. So just, if you have them for a frame of reference, take a look at that map. Dave, there's a better map. That one did not print out, but in the back up there's a better one. So what we did is Becky, myself, and the city, I should say the village planner met and kind of said, okay, how do we approach this? That's our marching orders from the council. How do we approach this in a fresh manner? And having worked with the village for a long time, as many of you know, some of these C2 properties, especially along Church Street, they're very, very close to residential properties, and some of them had historically had some pretty intensive industrial uses. Yeah. So the question then becomes, okay, if those properties ever want to be redeveloped to their highest and best use, and that's always, you always want properties used for their highest and best use. How do we accommodate these adaptive new uses when they're again, in very, very close proximity. To simply say we're going to go through the SALU process, it was very frustrating for the property owner to go through that, and then, looked at like, well, you're so close to residential, there's actually a prohibition within 500 feet of residential. It's almost like an automatic denial in a sense. So to promote, future development of the village in these unique areas, we needed a fresh approach. So the village planner did come up with a proposal that was two-pronged. The initial draft was to do possibly like a use variance. We have never allowed use variances in the village. And then the second approach would be to create what we call an overlay district. So an overlay district, if you think about it, you have your master plan, you have your zoning ordinance, but an overlay district is an approach that says in these unique pods, these unique zones where you're hoping for new redevelopment, you try to create a new approach. Some communities do what's called a planned unit development, or in this case, an overlay district. They're very close to each other, but the planner thought that the overlay district would be the way to go. So what it basically does is in these C2 zone properties within 100 feet of a residential, when those properties are ripe for redevelopment, they would not go through the SAU process. Because they're in the overlay district, they would make application to be rezoned, I shouldn't say rezoned, but to be designated for this overlay. And what it does is if they are approved, it gives both the planning commission and, for the first time, the village council the ability to take a fresh look and say, okay, how can we allow this use? Or how can we create a list of approved uses for this site? But also then balance that against these residential uses that are in close proximity. So the planners provided a pretty detailed memorandum to back up. I hope everybody's had a chance. He does a far better job than I do, but I've kind of given you a high level overview of it. But basically the process would be that the applicant would come in and file an application for a transitional overlay district designation. And they would provide an application, would provide key information that the planning commission would need to know. What is the use? How intense is it? What's the duration? And then based on that, the planning commission would schedule and hold a public hearing on the application for the transitional overlay district. Discussion between the applicant and the planning commission will refine any reasonable conditions, allowable uses, and other details to be determined. The planning commission then makes its first recommendation to the council to approve, deny, or approve with conditions the request. So they get the first public hearing, then it's brought to the village council. The village council role at that time in the process is to review the request, considering all materials provided and recommendations. The council will then make a determination to amend the zoning map with the transitional overlay district. Then the zoning map is amended to illustrate the overlay. So they get that approval. Now that doesn't end the process. It's just basically giving them that designation. Then they come back to the planning commission and then they apply for your traditional site plan approval and special approval land use to the planning commission. That then gives a more refined review by the planning commission. Assuming the project is approved by the planning commission, the appropriate building permits could then be pulled and the normal course of construction can commence. So again, if you recall, council was not involved in the last approval process. It was an SALU that went to the planning commission and it ended there. In talking with Brian, the village planner, Becky and I, we have decided that we don't really need the use variance. It's not something that the council generally wanted to have in the zoning ordinance. Because you remember, once you put that in there and you grant that, that's going to be up to the zoning board of appeals. You're not going to be able to control that use variance process. So we felt what we really liked, and Becky, I don't need to speak for you, but what we liked is this very orderly process, which obviously gives the planning commission the ability to look at, like I said, look at these properties in a unique way. And I want to emphasize, this does not change any uses or current zonings or anything. This is all prospective. This would give these properties that are going through a redevelopment or a unique use the chance to come through. So by adopting these ordinances, you're not changing anything at this point. You're merely putting into place the process that these properties will.
You're giving somebody another option.
Yes, yes.
We've, in our, are we out of public hearing? or
Not
we-
yet,
Not yet.
not yet. So,
No, not yet, no.
but I would be, again, so that's kind of the general outlay. We, certainly we can ask questions once we get out of the public hearing, but we also now got to open it up to the public
floor.
for anybody.
Well, also, just to simplify it a little bit.
Go ahead.
No
Yep.
offense.
Yep.
We've got buildings in Armada that were built maybe in the 50s. Some of them before I remember. I've been here quite a while. Maybe not before Marv can remember, but these buildings will as you know, the owners of those buildings will just about always have a problem with people coming in there to do any kind of work, because it's going to be in violation of an ordinance that was written 20, 30, 50 years after that building was made and put in town. And what this gives us is flexibility. Doesn't mean we're gonna put in allow something that's detrimental to the village, but it doesn't mean we're gonna turn something that's not gonna be detrimental to anybody because they're 50 feet from the lot line instead of 500 feet. So to me, this is just an ordinance to help us have flexibility for those 5 or 6 buildings that are in that category.
Yeah, and we don't want them sitting vacant forever.
Is that right, Becky?
So again, as the planner's memorandum says, we have to position these properties to succeed. We can't, as Dave said, some of them, gosh, as long as I've been around, in some intense.
Most of these buildings
industrial use.
have long-term businesses in them.
Right.
And you guys know the buildings that been, down here on Church Street, but some of them have had a lot of turnover, and it's created a lot of problem that shouldn't have been as big a problem as it was. In a way here, government was a little bit in the way, my thinking.
If you've got we've designated, the master plan has indicated we wanted to get more of the industrial uses out of the downtown and away from the residents. So the master plan said that. We've got a lot of non-conforming businesses there because they continue to be owned by the same people that have had them for a number of years. Do those not, once they change hands or, once they sell the business or something like that, then it can't go back to what it used to be. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding here, having been on planning and zoning, right? Is we're afraid that building is then going to be vacant for a period of time because somebody can't come in and put in a quasi-industrial use back in.
You got an ordinance that was written 70 years after the building was built.
No, I got it.
Not only built, but used. I mean, that's the key thing, is it has been used as, I mean, I remember dealing with some of those properties, and they were heavy metal, pure industrial properties, and you look over the fence line and there's a residence, and that, and nowadays, let's face it, I don't know if anybody would ever zone it that way, right?
Yeah, now some of those buildings, we're not going to try to put,
No, you don't. You can't.
We're not going to put something that's going to be detrimental to the village, but something that's not going to be, we're not going to hassle that building.
But the current special approval doesn't allow for that. I mean, does that make sense to change a piece of the zoning ordinance that says as long as you don't have a lot of heat, a lot of light, a lot of fumes,
This way seems to be the easiest way to do it.
It seems awful complicated.
There's no way around the 500-foot from a residential district. There is no way around that. Zoning can't grant that. Planning can't allow it in there. So there's no way around that to grant a special approval to that business. Because you have several buildings that are, as Jeff said, within 100 feet of a residence.
Yeah.
That building could only ever be used on for commercial, no nothing what it's historically been. It's easier to change it the way that's proposed, because then that allows us to put better conditions on the new business going in. We can say, we're not gonna flat out say light industrial can go in there, but this light industrial can if it meets no noise, no fumes, no, hours of operation, stop at 5 o'clock. You don't wanna say all light industrial can go in there, because all light industrial isn't equal.
Right.
So it's easier,
So if they're in compliance with our noise requirements, our fume requirements, our hazardous material requirements, stuff like that, if they're in compliance with those things, we would let them in.
I'm assuming so.
Well,
Yeah, but in
we
the
now have a
transition-
way, we now have a way to allow that.
More effective way to.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And again, it's for new applicants, not the existing
Right.
tenant of that building or owner of that building or business.
Right. I mean, it seems like we're looking down the road and anticipating that we're gonna have
Well, these
an
5 or
industrial
6
site.
buildings, one building has had multiple businesses in it. Our
Same
other
owner.
Some of the other buildings,
Correct.
for instance, again on Birch Street, they've been long-term, but eventually they may, those business may move out of there or something, and they wanna put something different in there, and we gotta recognize, we can't say, well, no, we got this ordinance now, and now that building's basically useless. That wouldn't be right.
Well, I guess I know it's an expensive proposition, but they could tear it down, they could redevelop,
Yeah, I don't think I wanna tell somebody to tear their building down, I'm sorry, Ross.
No, I mean, if they've sold it, but I mean, it's, again, you can change the use and require them to comply if they sell the building. If these non-conforming business owners sell, what we're saying is, that may not be the smart way, the right way to go about it. It sounds like given.
We just think this is a good way to do it.
That's okay, but do we want to get out of public hearing?
And the planner thought it
before we have our
was
discussion?
good. We had all the planner was involved in this ordinance, of course, Jeff was involved in this ordinance. The planning commission unanimously approved it. I'm surprised you haven't had some discussions at home.
I've had some discussions.
But, so, we're very much for this ordinance, and we think it's really good for our people and for the owners of these buildings.
John, you got a comment?
Yeah, I was trying to get on the public comment part of it.
Yeah, that's,
We're still in that.
yeah.
Yes.
Two things. One, I don't believe I've seen a copy of that, and I know it affects both of my real estates in the village. And two, the special land use doesn't go away with the owner. It stays with the land until somebody decides that there's gonna be a change of use. So-
depends.
Yeah.
It does
How
depend.
it's written.
What's that?
It does depend on how it's granted. It can be
Right.
granted to go only with the business, not with the land.
No,
Correct.
Right.
No.
So it just depends on how it was granted at the time it was granted.
This could come into effect if you decided to discontinue your business and maybe rent in somebody else's, another business in there, This could hopefully make it easier. That's the idea.
Yeah, it would,
It doesn't take away your special land use.
no, and or
No.
if I was to sell the building and they were to use the same special land use.
Subject to what Becky was saying, if there was some approval that limited it to time, but you're right, your general proposition, it would, if somebody came in and did exactly what you're doing, John, this ordinance doesn't affect that.
Correct.
Well, what our concern is when the use ceases, and you got a landlord or owner saying, all right, what do I do now? I can't get anybody to take this property, and I'd really like to get somebody in, one of the things now, these storage facilities are going up everywhere. We don't have that scale yet, but what if somebody coming in and said, I want to do storage? Well, that's not what you do. How do we deal with that situation?
Got a couple of them that are big enough though.
Yeah. But it's just, again, it's trying to be able to assist property owners. And let's face it, we can't, as Dave said, we can't ignore the fact that we've had these uses for 50, 60, I don't know,
Hey,
many,
these
many
buildings
years.
been there since
Right.
the 50s, maybe before.
I know the building I got is well over 100 years old, so.
Hey, one of them buildings used to be a John Deere dealership. Another building used to be a Ford dealership.
But I'd like to, if I could, get a copy of
Yeah.
that, and I just appreciate the position on special land use.
Joe, did you have?
Yeah.
Well, you'd get a copy of the finish ordinance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah.
clean.
What I like about the whole transitional overlay proposal is it puts things in a different perspective. It's taking it from zoning to council, a larger board, members that are vested in the community. More so, I think, that because you'll get people on the other boards that are from out of our area. More opinions, more concepts, more ideas. I just like it. I think it's a better fit for that type of decision.
Just understand zoning, all zoning board of appeals does is says, what's your master plan say, what's your zoning ordinance say? And as long as it meets the criteria in there, the ZBA
That's why we
is
don't
gonna-
want to use that
Right.
process
So it takes
What?
the special
Well-
approval out of it.
for these old
Well,
buildings.
I hear what you're saying. It kind of says, okay, you got guiding documents, but now we're gonna come up with something else that says we don't have to use guiding documents.
Because the guiding documents didn't concern them, because they were done professionally mainly, and they didn't concern themselves with buildings and situations. They were a lot made in a vacuum.
Well, the zoning board, I mean, it's really neither here
Well,
nor
not
there.
the zoning board, but the master plan.
Yeah, well, it just, the master plan is based upon what the community input was. So I just caution that, you know, you don't want to completely void out what the
Well,
master
first of all,
plan
we're not
said.
talking about new buildings going in.
No, I
We're talking
got
about
you.
these.
You said the old
These old
facilities.
buildings
Yeah.
that have been here a long time,
Right.
that we need to be flexible.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do support special land uses going in front of the village council. I don't think the planning commission should yield that power. It should come in front of the elected officials of the
Well, it
community.
would go before the planning commission also. They would recommend to
Then it
the,
would come.
But for the first time, John, it would afford council to say, this is a use that is desirable, here are the conditions, you know, so council will definitely play a role, but ultimately the planning commission then will decide.
That's how 081 went, and 091 went different. I like the way 081 went. But is that a draft, or are you making a motion to approve this tonight, or?
It's
No.
tonight, yeah. Well, it'll come to council for
Yeah.
tonight for adoption.
move that we close the public hearing.
Second. Support.
Time,
Slant.
8.
what time? 8:07?
8:07?
So Conan Suds
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
and 8:07. Okay. Don't-
Any further discussion? If no further discussion.
The challenge is going to be to keep this simple.
Yeah, but we got it right after this whole time.
Oh, you're talking about get out of public.
Let's get out of the public hearing first.
No
Go
roll
ahead.
call for.
No roll call on the public exit.
No roll call on the exit.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried.
And now it's,
Now it's over.
now it's to council.
No, as I was saying, the challenge will be to keep this simple and understandable. And so if council's going to, this is something that in theory would go to the ZBA if council's going to take on this role. Why would council not take on other ZBA functions?
Because this is on the overlay district.
I understand,
But
but
it's not, that's not for that, so Ross, keep it, so again, the master plan was updated twice to say, hey, as you said, we did a whole thing with the township and residents to say what we wanted. The idea was we wanted none of the industrial uses in your downtown area. And the idea was to create another location, which would have been an annexation per se, and then bringing into a industrial development. And there was financing and funding sources in that, which ultimately may never be able to come to fruition. So in between this and versus just carte blanche, it's everything is lost because every SAOU is going to get declined because of the proximity to a residence. You now have that ability, and again, and I'll call it a transition, not even overly, because it is a transition of how we go from A to B. And it may, and again, we may never have the ability to, have, occupants that are what are the desired state for the master plan, but at the same point in time. So that's two things. One is either the next update of the master plan could be further amended, to include that, or again, this just gives us an opportunity to help that along. So I think it's and I agree the use variance. I agree with you.
Think of this. No one's going to mistake these buildings for, co-working spaces. These are, as Dave said, these are industrial buildings.
Yeah.
We can't say to a property owner, sorry, we can't help you. That's going to be, that's basically condemning their property through your regulations. This is to trying to build the ability for them to adapt these properties. Now, again, is there some risk to this? Sure, but it's a risk we've dealt with for 150 years because we've had these buildings, long-standing in next to residences. So it's going to be a challenge for us, there's no doubt, but it's better to try to.
All these buildings have industrial use in them right now.
Right.
Up to varying degrees, yeah.
Even though you had a master plan, they still have.
Well, I just.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you don't want that kind of stuff.
And
in
new
downtown.
buildings would not come under this. You were gonna, no one's gonna put the Ford plant right in the middle of town. They will put.
No,
I
also, it doesn't take away from the ZBA, because that's that whole thing of there was a hardship that was created, and you can't just, it is not to take away from it, it's to augment that.
The ZBA would be involved in everything else, but not necessarily those buildings. As a building owner, you should like what we're trying to do. I don't know if you do.
The ZBA
Oh, no, I
have
just
approved.
wanted to make sure the parameters, because those are my retirement.
Yeah, I know.
The ZBA couldn't have approved a variance for the 500-foot
Yeah,
rule.
no, it wouldn't.
So that we're not, none of that is going to be.
Taken
It wouldn't, because we don't have the ability to go beyond what the ordinance says.
Well,
Unless there's, somebody made a mistake about something and this.
That's why we're having this.
Yes.
That's why we're looking at this, because we recognize that.
It just, I understand why we're looking at doing it. If further complicates the process, we sometimes have problems with our process, but it further complicates it, so we gotta stay on top of it.
Actually, I disagree with you.
I would say I
I think
disagree with that,
it
too.
lessens the complication than what we have right now.
Yes.
Well,
It's
that's
a new process, but
Yeah, the planning commission's gotta be on it then.
Yeah, it's a modification of the process.
Planning commission's gotta be on it and really understand it. I mean, some of the stuff that happens in planning is fairly complicated. and this-
they're on it anyhow.
Well, yeah. And then it's coming to council, and council going to have to decide whether they're going to deviate from what the residents said they wanted to do in the master plan. Right.
Well, I think you're being generous to say the residents did the master plan.
Thank you.
Actually, the same guys
I truly do. It was done by the planning commission with very little input from the public attending the meetings.
Oh, I got it.
Not that they didn't have their option, but I think you're being generous to say.
Most of your master
Public's
plan
opinion.
is done by your planner who does not live in the community.
Well, I don't, haven't worked on a master plan, I would say that's not true. Now,
The ordinance, yes, and the plan in general, but yes, we did have a
Public
number
citizen
of
sessions.
public forums where with the township and us had many.
Where is the motion on this?
The bottom, I was gonna say, David, you got, second page at the bottom. Right here. I figured it was
Under number 6.
Council's ready for the motion, are you?
Yep.
I'm sure.
I move to adopt the ordinance amending Article 2 and Article 21 of the Village of Armada zoning ordinance to create, implement, and administer a transitional overlay district.
Support.
Moved by Cullen, supported by Ballard.
think you should have a roll call.
Yep.
Yeah, just a second. I have to ask if there's any further discussion. Any further discussion, Mr. House? If not, roll call.
Conan,
Yes.
Baylor,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Bullock,
Yes.
Sleds,
Yes.
Delkey.
Yes, let's try it.
I'm gonna give you a happy yes.
Not real happy, but let's give it a shot.
Okay,
Hope
motion
you're right.
carries.
I hope you're right too.
When I was right, we wouldn't have done it, so.
Oh, I meant on water.
All right, so next is the,
Can I come in and pick up a copy of that in the office tomorrow? Or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
John, let's get a clean copy. Ours is marked up.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get it. Let
Well, I
me,
like, those are the good ones.
Okay.
No, yeah, please, that's fine.
I have your phone number, I can call you on your
Perfectly
cell.
fine.
Okay.
Unless email it over, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So, thank you very much, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, now is the Massey Ferguson tractor and implement bid. Chris, you have any comments?
Except it just that we had one, I was under the impression, we may have had a second bid, but apparently it didn't happen. We didn't receive it, so we had the one qualified bid, so.
Yeah. You want me to? All right, so,
What is council's wishes?
well, hang on, I
No,
gotta
no.
tell you, the bid
Yep.
came in from Larry Swartz for $4,025 for the Massey and the implements.
4,025?
It's in the motion,
4,025.
it's in the motion, please read the motion.
Be on your last page. What is council's wishes, please?
Well, Mr. President, I'd like the motion to accept the bid from Larry Swartz for the 1990 MF 1020 standard Massey Ferguson tractor implements, including a mowing deck, 4-foot brush hog deck, and a snow blade in the amount of $4,025.
Support.
I gave it to Steve.
Clark?
Yeah. It's just, yeah, I heard better.
I'm sorry, Chris, do you think we should, is that, the tractor will have a title, right?
No,
No, they don't have a title?
they don't have
I
time.
was gonna add, probably they sign the title, but
Sign the
Yeah.
title, right, yeah.
no title.
No
That's
title.
interesting.
Just the purchase agreement.
Bill of sale.
Bill of sale, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, money, let's,
No, it's accepting money. It's not like you're spending money. If you want to do a roll call, you
Yeah,
can, we don't have to.
we want all the money we can get.
Sleds,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Conan,
Yes.
Delkey,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Bullock.
Yes, motion carried. See, Kevin knows me. I like money.
If anybody says no, I'm gonna be crazy.
Oh,
I said the same.
all right.
Just to be
Up and
funny.
coming agenda items, council have any? Hearing none?
We'll probably go ahead and move forward on the purchase of the arsenic, that's a bad way to
Media.
say it. The media, the G2 media for the water treatment plant.
Next meeting?
Yeah.
All right. At this time, the floor is opened up to citizen comments. Any between Kevin and Mr. David Clark? No further?
Thank you for the name.
Thank you, John. Council comments at this time?
I put on everybody's desk a copy of the governor's declaration of state of emergency for the village, White Lake, and another municipality, I guess. And just what are we doing to find out what monies we're entitled to recover the village, make the village whole? We got any kind of a process that's moving forward? We let the chief do that, or?
Well, he's gonna attend the meeting this week, but
Okay.
I'm creating a spreadsheet of the costs as I get notified of what costs or bills come in, or I'm creating a spreadsheet to show the date and the expense.
Okay, it's probably time and material, right? Overtime, use of equipment.
Things that were destroyed, I will add, since Chris mentioned that, tipper blades, that wasn't on there because we can do things like that.
Yep.
Haven't gotten a bill yet from Catherine, that will be included in there when we get that kind of thing. Anything,
Perfect.
gas for the generators, you know, all the time
So-
when they came in.
So we can come to you and say, okay, this was a cost incurred by water department.
And I can add it to it.
Okay.
And it has to be date specific because my understanding is the amount of money is going to be based on a time frame.
Yeah.
If they, one time I heard your 5 most expensive days, one time I heard your 5 consecutive, you know, days. Maybe they're gonna take the 5 out of it now that they declare it's an emergency. I don't know, but I'm doing it by day order. So anything you give me, I need to know
Kind of
when the
the date.
expense was incurred.
Yeah.
Did the captain was here for a few days.
Yes, sir.
Did that money, was that paid for through the township?
The township paid $50,000 on the one. They paid $9,000 the other night when we were over there. And let's see, there was one, 29,000?
I left after, I
I
stayed
don't
full time.
I don't recall. I think it was 29,000.
Okay, but they paid.
Township paid that, yes.
So we don't owe Kaplan anymore.
No, we don't know nothing.
We shouldn't. We
And
say-
DTE needs to come through the office. They need to know what's going on.
I'm a member, and I was here for the 4 days or 5 days after the tornado.
I know, I'm just
There wasn't
saying, they
anybody
need
else
to know
really
what-
here
they need to know what's
get
going
that
on.
information.
And you didn't
Well, I
call?
just reported it.
You didn't call?
Marvin, I called you about 10 times and I got voicemail. So this guy has reached out to me. I turned it over to everybody in the meeting tonight. And I'm going to pass back, you know, Mike's name, Chris's name,
Gary.
Miss Kristen, once I get her name, and John's guy. I'm turning it over, right? The guy reached out to me because I was the only one that was talking to him.
Well, the thing is, how come I don't have 10 on my phone? I don't have one.
I called the number I was given. I called the number I was given.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't explain it either.
Well, that's a,
It's, the
It's just-
point is, I got contacted by this guy. It's the same guy that was doing emergency stuff downtown. And I.
when did he contact you?
A couple days ago, and I said, I'm gonna find out who the council wants to do this. So don't come back on me,
No, it's
because,
coming on you. We're just saying that things has gotta go to the office, so we
I-
know what's going on.
okay, so I'm gonna give it to Michelle, or I'm gonna give it to Joe. What are they gonna do? They're gonna bring it to council. I brought it to council.
I asked you before to please call me on it. You said you might even come over to my house. Am I a liar? I'm sorry.
This is computer message from this guy, and I put him off. I said, don't do anything until I find out who council wants to do this, right? I think we've got the appropriate people, right? I mean, if you want to change it, Marvin, please change it.
I told you, I requested that 2 weeks ago in my office.
What, the tree service? The trees? I fail to understand what you're asking.
How did we get this executive order copy?
I made that. Are you talking about the trees, or you're talking about the executive order?
Executive order, I just said. Did you hear me?
I got a call from Jeff Yarick on the executive order. That's how I got that. And I talked to Michelle about it, and she was aware of it.
It
So,
seems as though I'm the last one to know what's going on. This is the president's seat.
Well, when Ross told me, I asked Mike, at that point, nobody knew about it. You know,
Right.
Eric told you. He called the
Yeah.
fire chief didn't know, Jeff didn't know. So, I don't.
and I didn't ask Jeff to call me. He called me, right? He called me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. So,
Moving on.
Well, I do have one thing, though, if Chief Patrick goes to this meeting, I think it's important that we find out what window we have to submit, because
yes.
that sidewalk bill, I don't think we're gonna get that done like overnight, right?
No.
So I do think that's one that we need to know how much time to get reimbursed, because that clearly is caused by the storm. And even maybe to some extent, like if Dave's gonna do the backfilling even though it's clean fill, we should keep track of his
You
time.
could have more brush removal.
We could have more, so I just, that's,
Any legitimate expense, I think, we want to get into this. And so,
so
and I've
whoever,
got a couple for water, so when I got this, I just,
yeah.
I didn't see it on the agenda tonight, so that's why I wanted to ask about it.
Chris, you were dealing with the sidewalk guy for the normal, I'll call it normal.
Yeah, for our Act 51
Yeah,
project.
so if we can maybe do some outreach to him,
Well, this time I'm gonna extend it, yeah, that my plan was is that, hey, because of, especially with the billing situation, I plan, there's a couple other sources that may be better suited from a overall
Okay.
cost and timing.
Till we get a lot of that stuff out of there, you couldn't do any of those.
Exactly, you can't do, and then, so the stepwise is we gotta get the removal, we'll put some interim in, get them barricaded, and then go after the repairs. Now, with Dean being that we, ideally want to get him kicked off prior to this, because he could, his intention was to be done before the fair. Now he's gonna have to spill over past it a bit, so, because he's involved in the fair, so.
Well, there's a lot of fills, so
Oh, yeah.
some of them are gonna be I was told by one of the inspectors, that it could possibly be 5 foot deep.
Oh, yeah, man.
4 foot deep or
Absolutely.
3
Easy.
foot
There's
deep.
two that, or at
Yeah,
least
so
two of
they're
them
all
I've seen are
different.
at least that much.
They're all different, so, but they think they do have enough fill, so we don't have to buy. And
We do have quite a bit down in the other yard down there. We've got
Exactly.
quite a bit.
Not sure
Yeah.
what's really in that pile though.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of topsoil, but I.
Correct.
Yeah, you gotta be
But we need-
careful.
Exactly, we do, and Dave had an idea line on basically some rock type material, a road type grade, which would be great for the deeper ones to, because the other thing I was gonna say too is even if we did fill it, you still gotta get it compact and weighted, that's not gonna happen overnight either.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Can I know, Jeff Yurick is gonna be holding a town hall here, prior to our meeting, at
Next
6
meeting.
o'clock, next meeting, so the 23rd. His office called and set that up, so he'll be here from 6 to 7, most likely, and he'll stay for the meeting also.
Well, those are good questions to ask.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Well, he knows where I live. Jeff parked in my yard for about 5 hours on Sunday of the tornado after Saturday. So he knows where I live. He could call me, he has my phone number, and the answer machine's on all the time.
So he'll be here, yeah, so.
But Mark, I'll tell you right now though, but you have two numbers, you got your phone and you got your 784 number. I called that 784 number quite a few times, and it was always like busy, or.
Well, there was no power
Yeah.
right after the storm.
Yeah.
No, no power.
Yeah.
Some of us didn't have.
Well, I'm just saying, you could call that, I called it a number of times, then I got your cell phone to call you.
Joe?
All I'm saying is I made numerous attempts. I don't know what the issue was. I did try.
No, and all I was saying, Ross, there's nothing wrong with getting the call or anything. It's just, when you get those kind of things, it's just good to pass it on. Not that you shouldn't, be a point person, but just so everybody knows what's going on.
Joe, do you have?
Yes. Back to the tree grant from DTE. If you're looking for someone else to take care of it, you said you were passing it on. I'll work with you, I'll work with anybody you want. I did the last DTE tree grant that we had here in the village. So I'll help with whoever needs to do it.
Yeah, I've got paperwork that he sent me, and I just said, hold on, please, because I want to get it into the hands of the right people. So,
Okay.
Marvin, whoever you or council wants to designate, I'll turn that stuff over to them. He's looking for a call back, though. I mean,
I'll be here in the
they
morning.
want to donate the trees. Again, it's village and township, probably most in the village, because that's.
If it's the streets, it should be Chris.
Okay.
If he wants to accept it, if you want some help in it,
Would be
let us
my.
know.
I think Joe just said that.
Yes, you
She-
better ask Jo, because she
I'd let
really
her
wants
get
to do
involved.
it.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's, the more the merrier here.
Yeah.
Mike's gonna wanna do something with the park, he's got public right of way, Joe's got the experience.
Yep.
As long as they handle their own department, I'm satisfied, and if they need help, that's what I've been here for. I've said this in the past, and I'll still do it. You know, my health isn't as great as it should be. It's been very terrible. I'm not professing. I will be there. So, thank you.
Michelle, I'd like to add a police report, a monthly police report to the agenda if we're
Do you want it in the last meeting of the month?
Yes.
I'll just add you,
To the administrative report?
yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Made it fair.
Yeah, last concert in the park
Yes, concert in the park.
is Wednesday at 7.
I wasn't, go ahead, I wasn't quite done, I got a couple more.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
You know, in my time in the Army, whenever you do an exercise, or whether it's an exercise or live, you do some type of an after-action review. I think council needs to do an after-action review on how we managed the tornado, what we did good, what needs improvement, is a better way to put it. And so I'd like to have some discussion about how to proceed on that. There's a couple areas I think we need to work on, and I would offer up to council, tell me how you guys would like to do it, but I think we should do it.
You want to do a workshop on that? Is that what you're asking?
Could do a workshop, I guess.
I mean, I'm just asking rather than in a meeting. I mean,
Good way to get
It's just
comments out on the table.
or it could be simply that we pass in observations and thoughts. I know you had some, I've got some.
No, that would bother me, that.
Okay. You want to set a deadline for after action comments, Michelle, and they come to you, and then you can.
To me, the biggest, person who was in charge, which was our chief, he was the point guy for the disaster for our village, was the chief. And I know the chief was working through Marv.
Go ahead, executive order.
The chief is working with, can't think of.
With the fire chief.
With, Chief Karachi, and there's a large after-action process that's going on now with Macomb County Emergency Operations, the chief, Chief Karachi, Chief Patrick, and others. There's already one going on.
We are now out of our executive order.
Yes, yeah. It was only 7 days.
It was 7 days, right?
So anyway,
So you're wanting everybody, if you have comments, to turn them into me.
okay, by the next
You're
meeting,
asking.
that's like 2 weeks.
All right.
And then if you think it needs to go beyond that. And then lastly, I think we've had so many people step up. I've not by any stretch caught all the names. I think we need to figure out some way to have a community appreciation day or something like that. Again, I offer that up to council to consider how they may want to move forward on that. I mean, we just paid a guy to fix the sign in the park. Well, he went and recovered it after it blew over. He's planted the base, put his money and effort.
I don't know who
into
the
it.
guy was that fixed the
Andy Fair.
the gazebo.
Two guys that did that. I've got their names.
I got a grandson that worked all week here with the football team.
Yeah.
Every day
Football-
they worked.
Football teams
team,
from
we-
other communities.
You got other communities, so we
Yeah.
gotta come up with some way to say thanks.
Yes.
And I'm not quite sure what it is, because there's so many people to thank. So maybe just a single community appreciation
God,
day.
there's still water laying around if someone needs some.
It's,
Yeah.
so anyway, offer that up to council too. I think we can't let the disaster have come and gone and we don't talk about what we could do better and say thanks to the people that helped. So maybe next meeting we talk about that.
I'd like to say right now, the council has an excellent police chief. On Sunday, he came to my house 3 times. in talking with the fire chief, them two gentlemen had excellent control of everything. My blood is burning. The thing is, the people condemn and go by, because he was even passed on some things. I told him he has full command as number one and the fire chief working together. Due to my sickness, I was not able to go out totally. Some days I'm excellent, some days I'm bad. I hope someone else gets in the position that I've been in. And I'm here to help, not hinder. And I want to hear about stuff. And I don't hear about it from anybody, whether it's council or whoever. I intend to burn their ears publicly. Thank you.
So we're doing any community events?
Well, we already said last concert in Park.
Well, that's concert in the park.
Fair.
Okay.
And the
And
fair's
fair,
coming up.
yeah.
I
And another
move
little
that we
Yeah,
adjourn.
that little thing called the fair.
We don't have a closed session tonight. And
Alright,
so,
there you go.
and I'll entertain a motion.
Now you
for
go.
adjournment.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Yeah.
It is 8:36.
This is the first time you've done it.
Support.
and-
Yeah, you messed me
Like
up
forever.
there. I always put Ballard.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right.